It's evening, actually.
Yeah.
We're downtown Encinitas at our Compass office in Encinitas. This is the Beach Life Group with our third quarter. It's not really a round table because we don't have a round table this time. Well, we do have this round
A
table.
little round table.
But we're going to talk about the real estate market in North San Diego County specifically, some nationwide stuff. We're going to talk about iBuyers. We're going to talk about buyers in general, what's going on with buyers right now, interest rates, a couple specific markets, and then a couple other tidbits. So let's get to it. The train's coming too, so we get to hear the train. One of the things that I read a lot about is that buyers have kind of stepped back, and also there's more inventory now. I've read some of that. You read that in different markets. What are you guys seeing?
I think there's a lot of buyers out there still. I definitely think it depends on market and price point for sure. I just had a listing where we had 19 offers. We did an open house where we had a couple open houses where we had about 160 people through in one weekend. So
that's it?
Yeah, that's all. Yeah. So there's definitely a ton of action and activity still out there. That one was in Torrey Highlands, which is super desirable because of the Poway School District and other things. But
right.
I'd say as a whole, there's still a lot of buyers. There's probably less than there were in May and June when it was nuts.
Right.
But there's still a lot of demand out there.
Well, let's talk about that part in particular. So the market coming out of COVID the numbers look, year over year for April, May, June looked huge. Part of it's because during COVID, things dropped off a little bit. And then the other part was buyers kept coming and listings went down. So we saw a lot of huge price gains then.
Yep.
Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. It was intense. In the earlier part of this year,
good word for it.
there was houses. It was like kind of, instead of running comps and saying, what should we offer with our buyers? What should we offer in this house? We're looking at comps and kind of seeing what houses have sold above asking price in that particular neighborhood. So, it got kind of crazy. Prices are still being pushed up. Just same thing, simple supply and demand. There's not enough houses. The buyers are moving from this house to the next house. Like if there's a particular neighborhood, because there's not more than one usually house in the specific neighborhood. I did see something very odd pop up recently. There's 2 houses up in Village Park at the same price point. So that would be kind of a good test. Like I think long term you'll see some opportunities if you do see that more houses popping up in the same neighborhoods, kind of
right.
competing against each other as opposed to one.
Right.
Yeah. Everybody's funneling in there. The next one pops up. Everyone's funneling there. So it's still, prices are still, homes are still selling for a bit above, the ask price.
Right.
But it's not. It's pushing it up, just not as crazy as it was a few months ago. So.
There's still not enough inventory to where when houses come on, everybody knows about it because there's only like 2 in the neighborhood. Like you mentioned, there was one over in Encinitas off of Crest that I was talking to my lender, or one of the lenders we deal with, and he said, I had pre-approved 3 buyers for that one house. So that's just one little lender. So, there's a lot of offers out there, a lot of buyer activity. One of the stats I pulled from National Association of Realtors is we've had 114 straight months of increases in national prices, month to month, just year over year. January is higher than last January, February is higher than, so 114 months in a row. So at some point, things are, you would think would moderate. Goldman Sachs just had a thing about maybe a week ago. You guys take a look at that? And what did those guys have to say? They're big money, Wall Street.
Yeah, they're going 16. Their estimate is 16% gains next year, which is kind of on par with what has been this year. I don't know. I think it's a bit high.
Yeah.
Just compared. Once again, there's only a few levers you could pull to kind of even out supply and demand. One is obviously more houses coming on, or less buyers, or third factor, you could have interest rates changing, which we might be seeing in the next. I don't know. There's reports. It just depends on a bunch of factors, but they're kind of saying that we're going to see a few increases next year. So
what do you? Curtis had some stuff on interest rates. What did you?
Well, the one thing I read is one person I read, they're predicting they could go up to 4% next year. They're hovering around 3% right now.
And they bounced from like 2 3/4 a month ago. They're up to 3 and low threes. So
I just I ran up some numbers, and just to make a comparison between 3% and 4%, if you're approved for $3,200 a month with your principal and interest,
right,
at 3%, you can afford a $750,000 loan. If that goes up to 4%, that goes down to $670,000. So that's an $80,000 difference in purchase power.
Big difference.
Yeah. And then if you do decide to go ahead with that, paying that extra money every month, and you go ahead with that loan at 4%, it's going to work out to about $5,000 a year, or over 30 years, about $150,000. So there's a pretty big difference. And we saw it, was it back in 2019? They popped up to close to 5%.
2018,
we could feel the market slow a little bit.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And then they came back down again, and we took off again.
Yeah.
So that's one of the big, like Chris just said, there's all kinds of variables, but that's a pretty big one with these interest rates. They've really, kind of fuel to the fire.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
Yeah.
And I one of the things in going with the Goldman Sachs thing, Goldman Sachs, easy for me to say, I pulled up this graph. And anything we show you here, we can send you if you have an interest in knowing where we got the information. But Pulsomics, which looks at, I think they talked to over 100 economists and real estate people that are dealing with real estate specific, and they said 11.74% for this year. Well, that's already off. And then they're thinking a 5.82% gain next year. Mm-hmm. So that's a little less than Goldman Sachs. But then there is no downside in the next 5 years through 2025, according to them. Mm-hmm. Got a 3.9, 3.56, 3.55 the next few years. So if it just did that, not what Goldman Sachs says, in 2025 you're 30% higher. Mm-hmm. So, and
that kind of gets it to when you get to that 2025 is kind of the normalized what we've seen over the last 8 years, 7-8 years.
Yeah.
A little closer to it.
Yeah.
Take this year out and last year out of it.
Yeah. And so that's the interesting part of this. Part of us wants to say, I think, just human nature, you're like, well, it was up in San Diego, we're going to be up 20 or so percent. Mm-hmm. It's looking like by the end of the year. Year to date, we're up 20%. Mm-hmm. And so you want to say, well, it can't do that again. Just because you just wouldn't think it would. But we really, part of our focus and what we'll talk about next is, well, what's actually happening on the ground? And we can talk about a couple zip codes if you want, but what's going on right now? What's the inventory level like? What are the median prices done in some of these places? And then, until we see a change in inventory, it's supply and demand always. So that's what's going to tell the tale.
It's definitely the biggest question we're getting right now is when do you see inventory increasing? Right. With our crystal ball, it's a little tough. But
so when is it, Cassidy?
Next week.
I think we got a few more weeks. But there was some talk too with COVID and people getting forbearance, and there's people that have had a year run of forbearance, not made payments on their house, and so they think, well, there'll be a rush of people to sell. The problem is, I think some of what they're not thinking about there is, well, I didn't make my payment for a year, so I've got that money. Mm-hmm. My house is 20% higher price than it was a year ago, so I've got that equity. Really, there will be maybe not the kind of numbers they think will be going on the market, because now they've got a little more wherewithal. And all it did is add it to the back of their payment. It's not like it's all due now. They just got to start making their payment. So with forbearance so far, we've seen not much inventory come on with that end. Mm-hmm. So we'll see in the next few months, it'll kind of tell the tale. Yeah. But so let's talk about a couple zip codes. You guys have a couple zip codes that we were going to talk about. One, Chris, you have Oceanside.
92054. So coastal, South O, Loma Alta, Fire Mountain kind of area. Yep. Just over the past year, inventory is about the same. 2 months last year, about 1.5 this year. Just meaning still super low, super seller's market. Like we've seen everywhere. Some are more.
What does that mean?
I say super, but some are more intense than others areas. 1.5 months seems right now it seems pretty high.
Yeah. So let's talk about normal. What would a normal, if it was kind of an even buyers and sellers market, what would that look like?
Yeah, a lot of people say like a 6 month is even, but I think more into like a 4 month, kind of where it's not really a super buyers or crazy sellers market. There's enough buyers to buy, there's enough sellers to sell. Market times are normal, 30 days or so, not 7, 8 weekend, and it's only 7 and 8 because they're negotiating contracts for day 3, 4, and 5, and trying to before it actually goes pending.
Right.
So we're a ways off from that anyway. So more than half below. I mean, a
What's
third
the median price up there right now?
Median price is like right around $960, which last year it was right around $760 around the same month last year. So 26% higher. So you just look at
big jump.
$200,000 in equity gain. So if you owned a house up there that was $760,000, now it's worth $960,000. Like, I mean, it's crazy.
It's gonna be hitting $1 million there.
Yeah,
soon.
and I think at some point, sellers, the question always is, where do I go?
Yeah.
Scared to sell. Where do I go? Some of the things that we're seeing in this seller's market is, you are kind of, the ball's in your court. So a lot of rent back. So people staying in their houses after they sell them, give them a little more time. But, I don't know, at some point, do they see, now I have, let's say I bought it 4 years before that for $500. It was at $760 last year. Now it's almost close to $1 million. Like you almost have $400,000 or $500,000 of equity.
Right.
I don't know. That seems like tempting for a lot of people.
And it depends on your age and time of life and where you're at. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, and Curtis, you have Encinitas. What's
92024. Just looking at the thing that kind of sticks out is the inventory of homes for sale from September of 2020 to 2021 is down 61%.
Wow.
From 102 to 39.
Isn't that crazy?
Which is 0.9 months supply.
So under a month's supply.
Yeah.
Strong sellers market still.
And then the median price is up to 1.8. It was at 1.675.
Okay.
So those are kind of the numbers that pop out for 92024.
What do you got, Cassidy?
I have my zip code 92078. So South San Marcos. I've actually
in Lake San Marcos?
Yeah, Lake San Marcos, San Alejo Hills.
Both of those have been really strong, both Lake San Marcos and San Alejo.
Incredibly. And the big number that really shows that is the supply of inventory is 0.4, which is very, very low.
A week and a half.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other telling thing, and we were talking about this earlier, is the median price in 92078 has gone up by 28%. From this time last year.
Big jump.
So that's 827,000 up to $1,065,000.
Right.
So huge jumps, and especially watching that market this year, living in it, and we've had a lot of clients looking in that area.
Sure.
Even the homes that are in the 2.1, 2.2, they're still going for 200,000 or 300,000 over list.
Well, there's some
just driving
spectacular views and properties up there in that bracket.
And it's San Alejo has become, not that 92078 is only San Alejo. Sometimes it feels like it is, but it's just one of the most desirable neighborhoods in North County now, with the schools and with all the infrastructure and all of it's done.
I mean, it's a nice, really nice kind of throwback community in a way because of the town center and being able to walk to things, schools,
and lots of development on the other side of the hill too.
Yeah, and Rancho Tesoro, and then you got some of the older neighborhoods that are kind of that up and coming, Discovery Lake and Discovery Hills, and Lake San Marcos, like you said, where you're seeing a lot of new, a lot of big remodels, new construction and stuff in that area too. So
I sold a bunch of houses to Carlsbad people into Lake San Marcos years ago. I'm like, it's going to be, just buy there, you'll be happy.
Yeah.
And they are. I mean, it's because it's a nice community too. They've done a lot of infrastructure things there, golf course and
if you like to drive around a golf cart, super fun. Chris and I have gotten to do that.
Community, which is crazy. Which is
Our lights just went out. I think we're supposed to be done. It's because nobody's moving in here. Let there be light. Maybe not. Anyway, these are the things we deal with in real life. So I've got 92009, which is South Carlsbad, and $1,487,500 is the median price year to date there.
Wow.
That's a huge jump, up 26.7%. 0.5 month supply of inventory. That's one of those zip codes too. There, 92011 and 92078, we saw some like, compared to other parts of North County Coastal, they were like, hey, these are deals, and those, those near, because they've got great schools and great, locations, all that stuff. So
and it's definitely on that, like Chris said, one house coming up in a neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like we saw Aviara had one house on the market, and then one more house. Like it was back to back. Like there were never more than one house on the market for a long time.
It's kind of crazy, isn't it? It is. So in that kind of market, and we haven't really talked about iBuyers, but there's these iBuyers that come in, and I'm sure people that are watching have some idea what that is, but there's, basically it's Wall Street coming to buy your house, and whether it's Zillow or whether it's Redfin or whether it's whoever, Open Door, they'll come buy your house, and then you move out, they pay you cash and you move out, or you go buy a house and then they pay you cash and you buy another house. So from a convenience standpoint, it's a great program. If equities, if your equity that you work for isn't as important as the timing, maybe it makes sense. But in a market like this that's so dynamic, you can miss out on 100, 200, 300,000 in equity because you didn't use the MLS and get an open market, which is one of the things we agents don't talk about because everybody has the MLS, but that's one of the best tools that we use because we know, I'll put on something on the MLS or you do, and we've got all these agents we connect with. And so let's talk a little bit about that. What's one of the news items? Zillow's getting out of the iBuying market for a little bit right now.
Yeah, I think iBuyers right now are in a good position because they could buy the house today, sell it next month, and then they're also charging fees too. So don't get it wrong. Like you're still paying fees. It's not they're just buying the house.
You're buying
and they're making
time
profit.
and ease of sale.
Yeah. And actually, I think real quick back to Zillow specifically. I think there's actually some opportunity in buying some of the houses that they have purchased because I don't know if they just kind of take a long time to, in my experience, review offers and kind of get back and process. And so in that time, in this market, buyers have moved on. And so their properties have been sitting on the market for quite a bit. And you could see it sell at, let's say, $900,000, and they're putting it on the market for $895,000, and it's just sitting there. It's like, what do we see? Like we were talking about, a weekend worth, the houses is sold. Whereas theirs are, I just saw, it's like 60 days. Just because the process. They just, when you're working with just a seller and just a buyer, boom, and the agents are talking to each other, getting stuff done. I think, they'll probably, they're not going to let that continue long term. But right now, I think there's opportunity there. And it is an option for buyers. It's convenient. And if they don't want the simple thing, convenience over, even now, they're also putting offers that seem well above market, but like you've mentioned, where's market price? And it usually comes down to put it on the open market and seeing where it goes.
There's no way you can tell. We've experienced some, scene where probably somebody left a couple 100,000 or more on the table because they wanted to sell direct and not have people involved. So that in a dynamic market, it can be challenging. The best thing to do, I would think, is if you really do have a good agent that ask them the questions, sit down with them, tell them why you're doing what you're doing and what you're trying to accomplish. We have cash buyers too, so we can be your iBuyer if you just want to get out. I don't know how many people I've talked out of that because it's like, hey, really in 30 days you can be gone, or you can rent back for an extra 60 days and have your cash in the bank and the equity gain. Think about it. If I sit here and gain $600,000 in equity over the last 10 years, and then I'm going to give away half of it, maybe it's not the best thing. But it depends on your situation. Yeah. So if they're the best offer, I know a couple times you say, "Hey, take it."
Yeah, we've had lots of. Not lots. We've had a couple clients where we just sit down and there's, everybody's situation is different, but that convenience was the most important factor, multiple kids and all that. So we're obviously going to be, at the end of the day, honest about it and do what's best for.
Well,
for
it's house specific, neighborhood specific too. It might be a good deal to do that. In some places, it might not, depending on the competition, the price, the price bracket.
Because you don't know. In some markets, houses are going up by going 25 over list, and some are going 200,000 still. Now they're still going, and they're really hard to imagine that an iBuyer is going to offer you 200,000 over what your current market value looks like.
Not likely. But anyway, so that's an interesting factor. They're out of it now. I thought that was interesting. I think to wrap it up, what do you guys? So what do you think's going to happen next year? Oh, that's we're getting toward the fourth quarter, and it's like, what? So what do you think's going to happen? So we got Goldman Sachs at 16%. We've got. And we'll be able to run this back and see what you said. So, so caveat it all you want. But no, I mean, just curious because.
For me, I'd say that it's probably going to be somewhere in the middle of our normal, North County 5 or 6%, and Goldman Sachs maybe closer to like 10, something like that.
Right.
The hope is that inventory, it's not going to just flood on when our normal market, spring season kind of comes around, but the hope is that there will be more inventory, and then we'll kind of normalize it a little bit better. So I agree. Since Chris and I have been working with a lot of buyers this year, I know you guys have too, but it would be nice to have a little bit more normalcy on that end.
It's better for the market health going long term as well. So, what do you? We won't hold you to it, or will we?
Well, I kind of agree with. I agree with Cassidy. But when you see numbers like under a month's supply of inventory,
right?
Until that changes, it's not going to slow down that much. It's going to continue to. People are, and I know you showed a place yesterday here in Encinitas. 800 square feet at over $1 million, and I know you weren't the only person showing it yesterday.
No.
And it's probably going to have multiple offers. So I don't, I keep the people come. Some of my clients or people I talk to. When's it going to crash? People keep going. Not anytime soon, I don't think.
I think that part of the equation. I mean, the media likes to talk about crash and
bubbles and
I think prices are going to decelerate. Is a better word for it. I've seen that with some. Really well trusted real estate people that talk about, it's not going to be 20, 20, 20. It's probably going to decelerate the gains, but still a gain.
Right.
What do you think, Chris?
So it's this podcast, this guy, he always says, buyers, since they're one of the biggest drivers right now, prices kind of going up because there's so many of them. They're kind of like a flock of birds, and all it takes is that one bird to kind of turn and fly away, and they all follow. So until that one bird turns, like everybody's still piling in. So my hope is that it gets more normalized for clients, buyers, sellers. I mean, they're in the driver's seat, but it's still stressful dealing with 15 to 20 offers. Obviously they're in a good position, so it's not like horrible. But we do work with a lot of buyers as well, and just kind of get some more normalized. Like right now, the process is let's go see houses right when they pop on. You have like that first weekend to get through it and go check them out, and make a decision.
Yeah.
I mean, people are making that decision because they want those houses, but at some point, like I said, that bird changes course. Whether is it the interest rates that scare people away? Is it a bunch of houses that come on? Hopefully, that'd be kind of cool too. Is it something we're not even thinking about? The whole economy is tied together, so everything's flying up right now. Houses, stock market, Bitcoin, everything's kind of going nuts. I don't know. Could be
that's cheap money.
All those factors right there. But
So I actually think. I think the beginning of the year is going to kind of continue the same, but I'm looking towards the back end of the year to see more of an adjustment because I think at some point rates are going to be higher, interest rates, and I think that'll have a little bit of an effect.
It'll put the brakes on a little bit for sure.
So I would be surprised if we're up 16% next year over year. But there's a lot of smart people at Goldman Sachs, so who knows. But anyway, The one thing I do know is daily we're showing homes, looking at prices, watching the market, watching the month supply, which we kind of talked about here, which is an important factor. And we've got different reports we can get you. So if you're interested in buying or selling, call one of these guys, talk to them. And the one thing I would say for sure is whatever you're planning on doing, give yourself time to talk through it with a trusted advisor, because it is a dynamic market and you can make little mistakes that mean big numbers in the market today. So anyway, that's our roundup. Any who do you like in the World Series? Who do you like to get to the World Series? Let's talk about that.
My team's already out. That was the team that I
The Dodgers?
Liked. No, just the Giants. I'd say Braves.
Braves.
Yeah, I'd say Braves.
I'm going Astros. What do you got?
I don't even know who's playing. So.
I haven't watched the game yet, but I'm just going Astros because
I'm cheering for the Braves too because they're playing the Dodgers.
Yeah, I'll go Braves.
Nobody likes this. Well, okay. The one thing I'm very happy about this year is the Chargers are. Who would have thought, beginning of the season, the Chargers would be in first place and Kansas City would be in last?
Nobody.
Anybody?
Nope.
So who knows what's going to happen with the market? That's why I bring that up. It could be completely different.
Yeah.
But we're going to be watching it for you regularly and have the pulse on what's going on in North San Diego County Coastal. So if you have questions, give us a call. That's it. It's a wrap. The lights are already out, so I guess it's time to close shop.